our fears. I know the politics of this issue are tough, but let me tell you why I have come to feel so strongly about it. Over the past years, I've seen the determination of immigrant fathers who worked 2 or 3 jobs without taking a dime from the government, and at risk any moment of losing it all, just to build a better life for their kids.
And even in those years, by being here, those children have had it better. The question really becomes, who's better off? I met the child of a Mexican that came to this country illegally, whose daughter got a free education and has to go back to Mexico, or the daughter of the poor Mexican farmer who obeyed the law and whose child never had that opportunity to have that free education in the United States. Which child is better off? The one child that speaks English and has an education, even if they have to stay in Mexico, will have it much better off. And let's be honest about it, will actually have a much greater chance of coming back to this country than the child that stayed in Mexico forever. And that same principle applies to children all over the world.
I've seen the heartbreak and anxiety of children whose mothers might be taken away from them just because they didn't have the right papers. I've seen the courage of students who, except for the circumstances of their birth, are as American as Malia or Sasha. Students who bravely come out as undocumented in hopes they could make a difference in the they love.
Again, until you've actually seen children around the world that have tried to come to this country, to see those children, to see those parents in tears, to see the other children around the world outside the U.S. embassies that have this dream, that will change you. I guarantee you. Go to any country around the world and stay outside the U.S. embassy and see, look in the eyes of the parents and the children that are lining up for the embassy and see their hopes and dreams and say, why should they receive less preferential treatment than those that have broken our laws? Again, please look into those immigrant eyes, those potential immigrant eyes, and say, why not them?
These people, our neighbors, our classmates, our friends, they did not come here in search of a free ride or an easy life.
Again, you say that there are some people, but you also go to the hospital on any given evening and take a look at those individuals that are coming to the hospital, are getting free health care. Talk to a hospital nurse privately. I have done that on numerous occasions, to talking to different nurses, and they will tell you a significant amount of the babies that are born now in U.S. hospitals, and especially in Utah now, are politely called Medicaid pending. That's a polite way of saying illegal alien, and those bills are never paid.
They came to work and study and serve in our military, and above all, contribute to America's success. Now, tomorrow I'll travel to Las Vegas and meet with some of these students, including a young woman named Astrid Silva. Astrid was brought to America when she was 4 years old. Her only possessions were a cross, her doll, and the frilly dress she had on.
And one of the questions, Mr. President, I would encourage you to ask is, why, Astrid, do you feel more entitled than somebody from Ethiopia, from Zimbabwe, from China, from America Samoa, from Ukraine, Russia, Kazakhstan? Why do you feel entitled to be there more than these other individuals?
When she started school, she didn't speak any English. She caught up to other kids by newspapers and watching PBS. And she became a good student. Her father worked in landscaping. Her mom cleaned other people's homes. They wouldn't let Astrid apply to a technology magnet school, not because they didn't love her, but because they were afraid the paperwork would out her as an undocumented immigrant. So she applied behind their back and got in. Still, she mostly lived in the shadows, until her grandmother, who visited every year from Mexico, passed away. And she couldn't travel to the funeral without risk of being found out and deported.
Again, the problem is Whose choice is that? And whose fault is that? Is it the American taxpayers' fault of that? Is it my fault? Is it somebody else's fault? Or is it that parent's fault for bringing them here illegally, who, Mr. President, you are going to reward?
It was around that time she decided to begin advocating for herself and others like her. And Astrid Silva is a college student working on her 3rd degree.
At whose expense, again, I would ask? Is that a public college or a private college? Whose expense is that? And it is great. I believe in education. But there are millions, actually billions of people around the world that would love to have that same opportunity that this great country has given. We have given her one of the greatest gifts in the world. And even if she has to go back and live temporarily in her country, she is much better off than 99% of those people in her country or 99% of the people around the world. Yes, America, we did that. We're a great nation. But we shouldn't punish, again, somebody that is doing it the right way.
Are we a nation that kicks out a striving, hopeful immigrant like Astrid? Or are we a nation that finds a way to welcome in?
And actually, this is one of the things that a number of years ago in the state of Utah, we actually had a plan to do that. But the political elite wouldn't even allow the bill to be heard. The part of the thing, one of the solutions to do that, if you really want to talk about what we should do as a nation, I believe that one of the biggest hurdles that we have for people doing the right thing is that if somebody overstays their visa by 1 day, they're not eligible to come to this country for 3 years. If somebody overstays their visa by 1 year, they're not eligible to come to this country for 10 years. Let's waive those penalties. Let's basically say, hey, if you go back and get in line and do the right thing, we will forgive you. We will waive those periods. I think that's an amnesty that we could all give. But that way, truly, these individuals are going back to the country. They're not being penalized for being here illegally. But then they're in line like everybody else. But we couldn't even get a discussion because that's not what the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce wanted. They simply wanted the cheap labor. They weren't willing to stand on principle. As we often say in the state, they were putting profit before principle. And that's exactly what the President of the United States is doing right here.